Hi, I'm Daniel, and this is my capstone interview with Jen. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jennifer Guana, but I go by Jen. My pronouns are any of them. I'm gender fluid, so anything that feels good for you feels good for me.
And what do you do?
I am an owner of a queer barbershop in downtown Olympia that I also cut hair in.
How long have you been operating in downtown Olympia?
I am coming up on my third year. October 31st will be 3 years.
And can you tell me a little bit about the experience of getting here? Did you always live in Olympia? How did you decide to work downtown? Tell me about that process.
Yeah, totally. So I'm originally from kind of all over, military family, but I spent most of my young adulthood in Southern California. So I moved here from San Diego in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. Actually was living in Tacoma for about a year. Was working in a queer barbershop there after some time. The pandemic was kind of still rampant, so I was actually doing like weed farming just to have something to do. Then when salons and barbershops opened, I was in a queer shop in Tacoma for maybe like 6 to 9 months. And my partner at the time took a job down here, and so we came to check it out. And I was kind of feeling like I needed to maybe do my own thing. I wasn't really liking how they were running their business, and thought I'd give it a shot, and found this cute little place and was like, all right, I'm going to go for it.
Had you ever run a barbershop before this one?
So I've never run like my own specific space. I have managed salons and barbershops for most of my career. I've been doing this for almost 12 years now. And the first 6 years, I was like managing salons and doing that whole thing. And then I became a booth renter, which is essentially managing myself. So to this extent, no. In very small ways, I've been like an independent or I've worked for myself. But yeah, this is my first time kind of like doing a real business.
Why did you choose to locate your shop in downtown Olympia?
When I moved down here, Tacoma was the only city that I was really aware of outside of Seattle that was sort of a name, like you think of Washington, those are kind of some of the most popular cities that come up. I knew I didn't want to be in Seattle because it was just too expensive. I had kind of already done the downtown, like big downtown thing living in Los Angeles. So I knew that I kind of wanted to be in a city, but I didn't want it to be like mega city like LA or New York. I kind of wanted it to be community vibey, but not the overbearing type of community that you can sometimes get that can have, you know, toxic stuff. So yeah, I just was really looking for a cool area that looked fun and funky and interesting. And I actually just kind of drove through the neighborhood. When I first found this property, I drove through and kind of saw the whole downtown area. There was lots of tattoo shops, which is cool for me. Lots of cool little bistros and coffee shops and all kinds of cute little novelty stores that seemed like, oh, okay, cool. This tells me that there's a young group of people in the area. It gave me the impression that there was shopability and walkability. So that's something that I really, really look for when I'm going to put a business up. And it seemed, I can't describe it. It felt some kind of way being here. There was an energy, a buzz. It kind of senses like up and coming, I guess. Like if you've been in big cities before and you've gotten to feel them already going, you can sense like, oh, there's motion happening here. And when I was driving through Olympia, it felt like really potential. There was something really cool happening, and I wasn't sure what.
So you've been in the shop now for about 3 years. So all those things that you were looking for, did that come to fruition? Do you think that it fulfilled your expectations?
Yeah, I think that it fulfilled and exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways. I think there's some areas for me that I wish I could have like seen differently, but I understand I probably saw that more in bigger cities because perhaps they were already more established in some of those programs, and we can talk about those. But I feel like my expectations have really been exceeded because it is a really vibrant community here. I didn't know that Evergreen was so close by. I didn't realize that that was such a like prominent and prevalent community college, or excuse me, college in the neighborhood. So that was really cool and exciting because I also look for college towns when I'm going to move somewhere, because there's young people that want to look good. Like if I'm thinking about who cares about what they look like, it's usually young professionals, young queers who are in the dating scene, young people who are in the dating scene. And so I like being around young people. And so I was excited to discover there was college. There's a bus stop nearby. As the pandemic started to kind of phase out, or we began to feel more safe, more events started happening downtown. And so a lot more people were coming down. And that was really cool because that's where I felt like I was missing during the winter time and kind of really in the midst of the pandemic, which makes sense. Not a lot of foot traffic. So once people started to realize that businesses were back up and running, it was really cool and vibrant. Yeah.
So you talked about setting up your shop as you were coming out of the pandemic. What was that like trying to get your shop started in downtown and, like you said, the lack of foot traffic?
Yeah, it was a little difficult at first. We live in the age of media, and I was really, really, really counting on media to play a huge impact in the way that I built my business. When I first moved to Tacoma, I built like a full solid clientele within 6 months just from a very small Instagram. And it's not anything fancy that I'm doing, it's just portfolio. But I was really relying on that again. And I think that had I not already kind of invested into creating content for my brand several years ago, that it would have been a lot harder to do that, because there kind of isn't much local business marketing that I have seen or that I have been brought to my attention, that there's like resources to say, hey, there's a business down here now. And I know there's like the Thurston County Chamber of Commerce and things like that. But to be honest, I don't personally feel like I fit in those organizations, maybe. Or maybe I'm just not sure how I fit in those organizations, but I do know that they are resources. But I think I'd feel more comfortable seeing more people that kind of looked like me and that were young like me and kind of running more influenced by the grungier side of Olympia, but wanting to do that in like a sophisticated way. Because I think most of the other businesses have been, from my understanding, hearing from other locals, they've been established for years now. And so perhaps they started when they were my age in their mid 30s and now they're in their 50s. And so I think it'd be cool to start seeing some other young entrepreneurs and business folks like in the area. That would have been, I think, easier for me to get access to those resources. But ultimately, using social media is the main way that I was able to open in the pandemic, because otherwise I don't think that people would have known. There still wasn't a ton of like going to somebody's shop and handing out flyers. We were still really trying to keep distance, and like the best way to communicate via distance is digitally. And I just really leaned into that. So I want to say it was difficult because I was here sitting by myself a lot of times. I wasn't getting clients, but I chose to maximize my time and use a little bit of the internet to try and start creating content for Olympians to find me. And, I met folks, honestly, such as yourself and a few other clients who are really deeply embedded in the community and are really focused on continuing the build of and the amplification of that. And, I think word of mouth is the main source between like the small influence that I had just posting pictures of good haircuts that I can do and having a word of mouth. So when somebody said, hey, I came to this barber, here's their name, they can go look at my thing and be like, oh, cool, they do a decent haircut, I'll go see them. And that's really how that worked for me.
Definitely. And you're located on a pretty major street. That's actually how I found you. Is I was just driving up and down this road so many times. I saw your name and I was like, I should check it out. How important do you think it is to be on this street and to be like on a major street in downtown?
Yeah, I think that is huge for any service-based business. I think any business in particular to have traffic, just to have eyes and feet and faces walking by is probably really smart. I will say that you mentioned that I had waited to put like a sandwich board. It was getting processed and designed and all of that. And then the week that I had put that sandwich board out, it like instantly changed the way that my business was. Because it did. It brought you in, and the next day it brought somebody else in. The next day it brought somebody else in, and phone calls started happening. So just having visibility on the sidewalk to the street was like hugely influential. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you did not see a lot of promotion of downtown businesses and that you didn't necessarily know how you might be able to fit into some of the established organizations. What identities do you feel are important to you and what identities do you not feel like are being represented in these organizations?
Yeah. So I appreciate that question because I am a Mexican American born female. I identify as non-binary, but for me, gender is more fluid. So pronouns and those things aren't necessarily as important to me, but they're important to my community. Therefore, it's important to me. And as somebody who's indigenous to the land of Mexico and Texas, as a woman, I'm a veteran, I have a disability, I have a mental disability, which is difficult to navigate because we've all got different brains. And so it's like I've also got my brain sometimes working against me in my own favor. So it's also important to work towards, like, I want for other people who have the same marginalizations or their own style of marginalizations to understand that you can still like be a business entrepreneur, because I didn't think that that was an option for me for a really long time. So it's important for someone like me to be represented and to have those types of things out there. And I came from Southern California, so there's a lot of indigenous owned and black and brown BIPOC owned businesses. So when I got here to Olympia, it was a little bit more, I think, of a shock for the community that I was here. I felt welcomed. I didn't feel ostracized and I didn't feel alienated, which was really nice. I felt like the community was really excited to have something new or somebody to offer something culturally different. And so that's been really good. Yeah, and I'd just like to see more diversity, just more diverse entrepreneurs, people who look and don't look like me.
Right. I'm glad that the community response was so positive for you, but also you are, I would say, one of the only female owned barbershops downtown. You are one of the only barbershops downtown with the identities you mentioned. What do you think what do you think are the barriers to having more, like you said, more diversity downtown? What would be the things that could be done to improve, to have more businesses downtown?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great question. I think what would have been beneficial to me would be perhaps if there's like, and maybe there is, and I just wasn't aware, but like a small business liaison of the sorts that was kind of connected to all of us. So that way, if another BIPOC owned or LGBTQ owned business were to pop up in the neighborhood that I didn't hear about, we are so in our own networks and community, but it would be really helpful to have like some sort of network of business of other entrepreneurs who are saying like, hey, I'm willing to collaborate and talk with other business owners, and other ones that are saying, hey, I'm looking for that too. And I think sometimes it's hard if it's already I don't know, set in motion like in something like a chamber of commerce, I'm intimidated to go into that because I've never been to one of those types of meetings. I don't know what to expect. I don't like to be somebody that shows up ill prepared. I don't like to be somebody that shows up uneducated. And so for that reason, it seems too scary for me to even try. I'm sure they'd all be great and friendly and I'd get everything that I needed, right? But it just feels very intimidating because it seems so inaccessible because it's been a space that I haven't been welcomed in before. So if there was a thing or a person or a place or an entity that existed that was a hub to say, if you're a small business, you apply for your license, this is a resource or a place where there's other local entrepreneurs doing business or with identities like yours. And here's some people that have linked and agreed to say, like, we want to work together. Like, that'd be so freaking cool. Because I'm having to use my network of people who are linked to other people to say, hey, you should meet so and so. And it'd be easier if there was a hub.
So when you started your business, was there any outreach from either the city or the Thurston County Chamber of Commerce or any organization? Was there any sort of outreach like that to you as a new business starting downtown?
There was one woman of the Thurston Chamber of Commerce. At that time, I'm not sure if it's the same individual, but they did reach out to me. They left a voicemail, and they kind of were willing to sort of meet and look and chat. But I wasn't sure. The voice that was leaving the message still sounded like one that I wasn't sure would be willing to conduct business with me. And I know that's sort of a strange thing to think about. But I have even had like clients make comments about me being Mexican. So I know that it is a thing that the community notices. There's been positive and negative feedback. And so, I don't know, maybe to my unfortune or to my disdain, whatever that word is, that fear is blocking me from a resource that is actually there and available. But it just kind of feels inaccessible. She did reach out. They did reach out. But it was sort of a one-time thing and then never again. And like, I think now I'd be more open because I feel like I've got my feet in the ground in my business established and like it's proven, it's successful, we are succeeding. So I feel more confident to be like, hello, my name is, nice to meet you, and how can we work together now? But yeah.
But that success you did all on your own. You did not do that success with the city or with the county. And in some ways now you are creating a more vibrant space for those entities that they will then tout and say, we are an accepting place, we are a welcoming place. But you did that all on your own. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like should the city or the county or the Thurston Chamber of Commerce, should they be doing more to make sure that other queer shops can also thrive downtown and not just have to do it on their own?
You know, I think that's such a beautiful question, like for just life in general, right? Like, I believe I'm a millennial. Maybe that's the thing. I believe that each of us should do what we can to help the next person. And so I live my life that way. Do I believe, I wish some of the older generations weren't so stuck to this, like, well, I did it, so you should suffer too. I don't personally come from that space. To me, it's like, yeah, that sucked. It was really hard. I did it by myself. I'm damn proud that I did it by myself. And I know that all my ancestors who came before me are proud. And I hope that the community that I've built are proud of me too, because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it to raise our voices collectively as a community. I'm doing it for my clients who are also disabled. I'm doing it also for my clients who are indigenous, who's, you know, we can go on forever and ever about land and things like that. But yeah, it was hard. And yes, it's frustrating. And also I'm proud that I did it because it's taught me that despite what society has set up to be against me, with a little bit of ambition and tears, you can get it done, you know? So, like, I hope that maybe they change, you know, that they'll be open to lending a hand instead of trying to be like, well, you guys figure it out because we had to figure it out. And who knows if it is like that. But, you know, I hope that that changes. And what I think about it is that there are going to be more businesses like me to be the first ones to come and be that change and start making that changes. I think that more businesses will start turning up like mine, where we are looking to do ethical, sustainable, community-based stuff, where we really are trying to. That seems what people want. So, yeah, it's frustrating, and it bothers me that perhaps other people have gotten things easier, but that's kind of the reality of being a queer, indigenous, BIPOC veteran with a disability, you know? So that's kind of the nature of what it is. And I've always just been somebody taught that if you get lemons, make something with it, whatever that is. So, yeah.
I'm proud of you, Jen. If no one else will tell you today, I will. I think it was very important. I mean, I am a queer individual. I do have a disability, and that is one thing that I found is really important about your shop. I have gone to other barbershops in the area, and to be honest, it was not a very safe or welcoming place. Even if they were completely nice to me, even if they were completely respectable and nice and funny and even laughing, it just was not the same atmosphere that you created in your shop.
Thank you for that. I have heard that, you know, I think that we do need, like, perhaps it's not proven to them because in their lives, I don't know how much interaction folks get with LGBTQ people, but that is who I predominantly surround myself with. And it is proven that in less than 3 years, I have elevated my business to such an extent that I'm able to grow and get a larger commercial space, bring 3, 4 other employees on, and create an actual business, do all that all by myself. Like, I hope that they see that and think like, dang, one person did that with a little bit of dream and ambition. What could we do with, if we would have supported that individual, if they had the backing and the support that other folks who go to business school and get out of the prestigious fancy business college, and they have that wonderful network of business people that they can follow that path. I think that they should, I hope that's what I want them to see, is that yes, great, invest in those people, that they are proven too, but so am I. So are businesses like mine, and so are people like me. And it is proven in my clientele base that they are seeking it because I have had to hire 4 individuals in less than 8 months. So, yeah, you know, I want for people to understand that LGBTQ people, queer people, marginalized people, people with disabilities, Black, brown, indigenous, people who are not cis, het, white, het normative, neurotypical people are not the only people who exist anymore. And all of the other identities are just as valid. And their cash is the same cash currency as everyone else's. Truly. And they deserve to have safe spaces to spend it because they're spending it. They're spending it with me, and they're spending it in my friends' businesses who are just like mine. So, you know, to think that queer people are not somebody that you can count on, surprise. I understand why they have been conducting business the way they've been conducting it for so long, but like things are different now, and we need different stuff. We need different support, different resources now than what worked in the past, because you've got different identities, different people living, different people wanting to be out in the world, and like the old way isn't, it's for the old way. And this is a new way.
So you not only work downtown, but you also live downtown. Could you explain to me that thought process and why was it important to you to not only operate your business downtown, but also to be a resident of downtown?
Yeah, totally. I think my experience from living in other cities larger, such as Los Angeles and like San Diego, I mean, the first thought was like parking. Nobody likes to park in a city. And so my thought was like, if I'm going to have to be living in a city, then I need to find somewhere with parking or that's highly walkable. So I opted to get rid of my vehicle. And so I needed something that was walkable or had accessible transportation, which where I chose to live, there's a bus stop like super nearby. Lyft and Uber and all those things are super accessible. So it was like, I know that there's key points in downtown that I'll be able to find a lift no matter what. I'm not going to be kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere without a vehicle. So it was important to me to just have access for my own daily needs. There's like a grocery store nearby. Everything that I need is walkable, and that's perfect. But it's also how I wanted to live and spend my time. So one thing that I learned was if I'm going to be working downtown and creating these networks with people who are also living and working downtown, it hindered my ability sometimes when I would have to drive an hour and a half back to wherever it was that I was living. So it just makes it easy to be like, hey, let's go grab a coffee, or let's meet up for lunch and discuss a business opportunity. It just keeps things simple, as I'm growing and starting to have different meetings with people, to be like, hey, let's go to a coffee shop downtown, or it helps me feel like I can like stay on the pulse a little bit more. Because if I'm living in the community that I'm also working in, I can hear the needs and the things that are missing and try and, for me, I'm a problem solver. I like to try and figure it out. So it just gives me the cheese that I'm looking for to continue building my business.
You told me recently about your search to find a bigger space. Like you said, you have hired on 4 new people and you found a bigger space. Tell me what that process was like hiring the 4 new people, and then tell me what the process was like to find that bigger space.
Yeah, so I initially was just looking for one individual. I was getting an influx of calls. I was turning away probably 10, 15 people a day. My waiting list had gotten ridiculously long. I think I had about a 2 month wait at one point in time. And I just really needed to help me find someone to help me with the overflow. And somebody, I put an ad on my social media. Initially, one person reached out, and we kind of started doing that. Their spouse also does hair. And so I kind of met with them, and we also vibed and brought them on board, started to help them build up, see what their clientele is like, see what needs are we missing, because I'm somebody, I specialize in really short, masculine kind of styles. So from the needs of my community, I was looking for somebody who provided feminine and more feminine styles. So then I sought somebody out for that. And it's just really been listening to what my clients are telling me they're looking for, what their household is looking for, their wife, their partner, their husband, their kid, their whatever, and just finding solutions for them. And for me, it was bringing on more people that had skill set that I didn't have. And for me, I wanted to be able to still access every range of person in the community. So every budget is basically what I'm referring to. So I wanted to make sure that it was still accessible as I grew. So I prioritized finding people that were still within an affordable price range, so that way my clientele can still have all their needs met. So yeah, it was sort of a collective of ideas and finding people that checked off all of these lists. And then when it came to the space, it was kind of the same thing. I followed the same thing. I wanted to stay downtown. I wanted to stay on the Capitol side of downtown because I love the water is here. I love that the Capitol is across the street. I like to be able to, I have a service dog, so in the middle of the day, if we need to go outside and like grab a little break, we can just pop over at the park and sit outside and get some fresh air. I just love this side of downtown. Truly, it's my favorite part of downtown. And then to just be able to walk into where it's really congested is awesome too. And I say congested in a positive way, but because it's more businesses are tightly packed with each other. There's restaurants and bars right next door, where on this side of town it's a little bit more spread out. It's kind of more residential right here. It's a little bit more parky, and kind of people are hanging out and having picnics. So I really love that about this side of downtown, and I wanted to stay on this side. And there's a few spots in the area that had what I was looking for, but then they kind of missed the mark for parking, or they missed the mark for a couple different amenities that I would need. So I ended up finding a great spot right here, kind of in the same property that I'm at. But yeah, that was a little bit of how it went.
You told me at one point that the price per square foot wasn't meeting your needs. What was not meeting your needs, and what did you find?
Yeah, so I think that the hardest thing for me to find was a square footage that was sort of in the size frame for me to actually be a small business. It seemed like the spaces that were available were maybe more for the phase that I'll be in after this next phase. So that was kind of the hardest spot, was to find something that was small enough but big enough.
What obstacles have you faced in operating downtown? And then what improvements would you like to see in downtown?
Yeah. I think the biggest obstacles have been changing the perception of downtown. The things that I hear when I meet new clients that have somehow stumbled into the area for whatever reason and they discover I'm here, one of the most common things I hear is like, "Oh, how are you managing with the really rough, scary downtown?" And I think that there's such a perception that downtown is this sort of rough and tumble place that's unsafe. But Olympia is like, I've been in Los Angeles, and like, it kind of makes me laugh sometimes that people are scared of sweet little Olympia. Oftentimes, the folks that are outside that folks don't want to see are just people who are dealing with crisis. I have not had any experiences with any of the transient community that have ever damaged or created problems in for my business. So when the outside community from this suburban area surrounding us is like, "Oh, I could never be out there. There's just too many homeless people," or "We're always scared to come down here. We have to get out of here before it gets dark because we don't want to see the houseless folks." One, it's just not what is happening down here. And two, I think that speaks to the fact that we could use a bit more resources in some of those areas. But, downtown is a really fun, safe, happening area now. If it was ever like that at one time, I mustn't have lived here, because my experience with downtown Olympia has been cute and vibrant and friendly and enjoyable. Like all things could be done better. But that's why we're a community of people, and it's great to have conversations like this because we can help each other grow and help businesses grow and communities grow and evolve and become more positive things. So yeah, I mean, there was some obstacles. There's obstacles in everything in life, and you just figure out what to do and how to get to the next step. So they didn't feel like too much of obstacles to like really get in the way. And the rest of Olympia and the community itself in the location have been so great that it kind of mitigated anything that was stressful. Didn't seem that stressful. The community here is really awesome.
Last question. Is there anything that I did not ask today that you would like to talk about?
No, I think that you definitely did touch base, but if I left anybody else with anything to know, I think it would be that, like, perhaps in the past, marginalized communities didn't seem like a viable place to want to spend resources so that they could have communities. And this is the other thing that I hear, because some people get confused where they're like, "Oh, well, if I'm not gay, I'm not welcome there." And that's not what it is. LGBTQ inclusive spaces and marginalized people, we're creating spaces so that we can have friends and be around other people similar to us and like us. The same way that if you live in a different state than your home state, and you happen to be walking into a bar and all of those people are wearing your same sports ball team's shirt, "Oh, I'm in a Seahawks bar, but I'm in Denver." You can find your people. That matters. That makes sense to you when it applies to you. And I want for people to know and understand that there is a whole collective of individuals. We're called human beings that all live, need, and require different stuff. And we don't have to be in the old binaries in every way. Like, this community is trying to break binaries period. It's not just in our gender. It's just like, hey, that way of doing things, the capitalistic and corporate ways, maybe it worked in some ways, but here's some ways where it didn't. Like people are this community is looking to just include everyone. It's not about we are it and so we're the only ones. It's a true place of inclusivity. So I just hope for people who are unsure why it's important that businesses such as mine exist, like, oh, you can just go to a hair salon and they don't care because they let gay people be anywhere. It is important to have spaces like mine. It is important to have exclusive spaces for people to know they are welcome and safe. And even just because you might not have experienced it in your own life doesn't mean that somebody else isn't experiencing it and that they can't find use and value in it. And if it's any consolation, I've literally proved it, you know? So that's it. I hope that whoever ends up hearing this project for you knows that, like, marginalized people are people. They just happen to be different. We happen to have different preferences. We happen to have different ways that we live our lives. But at the end of the day, we are still human beings that require oxygen and blood and money to pay bills. And people are going to pay their bills or they're going to buy pizza. But no matter what, they're going to buy the pizza that they want. So build the best fucking pizza. Sorry to say fuck.
I think that is a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. This was cool.